The slab's been sitting around the shop for about 4 or 5 years now, and I've been waiting for a really cool project to make with it. And the Tools Today team came up with a really cool design for a serving board, so I figured this would be a great project for it. I started out using a RC2255 flattening bit to show the grain of it. Then I switched out for a downcut bit here to cut the straight edge on the slab so I have something to reference up against the fence since I don't have the joint here. Here's where things started to go wrong again. I accidentally cut out the pockets of the letters instead of the letters themselves. So we'll actually fix that with just a little bit of epoxy, and you really can't tell. I took the epoxy after it was dry and cut it down flush with a 1/2 inch downcut bit, and that made quick work of it. So now we're switched back out to the 45 degrees the insert bit, and we're getting the rest of this carved out. This bit works very, very well. It's cut super clean. You can see here this is the first pass, and then with the built-in cleanup pass on the Vectric software, it leaves literally zero cleanup left to do. This bit cuts incredibly clean, and it's definitely my go-to bit for detailed projects like these. So now we're using some Total Boat epoxy. I'm going to go ahead and fill a couple of small cracks that I've got in the wood before adding the pigment to it. So now we got the Cobalt Blue Black Diamond pigments, and we're going to fill the text with that. This is one of my favorite colors, and it actually came out really nice on this board. So we're sanding it down flush with the Rotex. Make super quick work of this, and then we'll get it back up on the CNC to round over the top of it. I'm using a point round over bit here. This is a 1/4 inch bit, and it does a real nice job. So we switched out for a downcut bit here to do the rest of the cutting. Cut super clean, and I absolutely love the profile of this board. Like I said, it's great job coming up with it. Couldn't be happier with the way the profile of this board looks. Matches the slab perfectly. Tabs actually broke off on their own, so I was able to just pull them off. I didn't have to do any cutting on them. Board. Now we just need to do some rounding over, so I got it switched out for a Intech insert round over bit. This is a 1/4 inch round over to match the top side, and again left a super clean cut with really no cleanup needed. So we'll pop the grain with water for the first time, and then we'll sand it down with 150 grit, and we'll also go around all of the edges. And then we'll pop it again after sanding and go to 220. This is the final pop we do. And we're sanding that down with just a Festool sander, which works really well, and just spend a few minutes cleaning up the edges. So everything is nice and smooth before applying the layers. That's my go-to finisher for serving boards and things like this. And it works great, so we let it sit overnight. Now we'll just buff it off with a towel, and we're left with a pretty awesome piece. Pretty happy with the way that this guy came out. Please let us know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you guys on the next build.
Getting somewhere.
I've wanted to make my daughter an art table and chairs for a long time, so it's time to finally do that. Getting a piece of 3/4 inch Baltic birch, put up on the CNC, and getting everything zeroed off. My wife hand lettered the word create, so that's what we're carving in here. I brought it into the software and made it a vector so that way we could get it carved. If you remember the crayon sign that we did, that was just a test piece for this one. I wanted to make sure that it would turn out alright, and it definitely helped out a lot when I did that piece. So we went through, created the initial pocket, and then we're just cleaning everything up in the larger areas. This is the 46202-K 1/4 inch downcut bit, which does a really great job with this. Taking a second step down to make a 1/4 inch deep pocket to set the crayons into. Then we can get it taken off the CNC and over to the router table. I made a quick jig to round over the corners here. Don't want any cracked heads on the corners of the table, so this will soften everything up and make it a little bit nicer to the touch. So we got that all done using a flush trim bit. It copies the radius of the jig, creating a nice smooth cut on all 4 corners of the table. So now that that's done, we can turn our attention to the crayons. First, we need to get all of the paper removed from them, and then I cut them into smaller pieces that are just small enough to fit underneath the pocket height of the actual piece. So you can see here it's quite a tedious process to do that with all the different colors, but it's always really cool to see. So then just using a heat gun to melt all of those, and this is why I didn't use a oven or anything on the smaller sign, because I needed to make it a test for something that would work for this table. Since this tabletop is larger, definitely wouldn't fit in the oven, so I used the heat gun on the sign to make this an accurate test. So we're getting all of the crayons all melted down. I absolutely love the way that they swirl together. I think it's really cool to use a kid's art material on something that's going to have her draw all over it. So the crayons are all melted in. There's definitely a little bit of bleeding there, but we took care of that a little bit later. So with this done, we can add the polyacrylic on top. This is going to help stop any of the bubbles from coming up when we add the epoxy in over the top of it. This happened on the last sign, not very bad, but it was enough to do something a little different on this one. So then adding a thin layer of epoxy over the top of it and creating a nice barrier to prevent any sort of melting when we do the thicker pour. Mixed it for 3 minutes, and then we can use a syringe to get it in there really nice. Everything works great here, and you can see we just created a little mound over the top of it, just due to surface tension and creating that. We don't want to pour too much here, and it makes sanding a little bit easier. So using 220 grit sandpaper here to remove it, I was super worried about it going through the veneer of the plywood. A lot of times already gone into this tabletop, and the last thing that I want to do is have a mistake like that. So it ended up working out. We're using water to pop the grains since we're using a water-based finish on it, and then just rounding over the corners by hand using a Gator Zip sander. Makes things really easy. And using 320 grit, we can do the final sand on the piece and get everything ready to go. So with the tabletop just about done, we can turn our attention to the base of the table using a same 1/4-inch downcut bit to create the legs of the table. Keeps things nice and consistent at the same length. We can get the tabs trimmed off with a multi-tool, and then these legs are about ready to go. So now we need to create the aprons for the actual table for the legs to attach to. Using an 82 fine trim blade, we can get the piece cross-cut and cut down the size using the Jessup Miter Excel gauge to remove the stopover and create the shorter pieces, and the blade does a really nice job cutting those without any sort of tear out. We need to move over to the router table. Using a 4-flute roundover bit, I got everything rounded over. You can see some lines on there, and that's where it's going to meet the apron. I didn't want to round that over. I wanted it to be a nice flush fit. So using a flush trim bit, we can get the rest of the tabs all flush trimmed, and all these pieces are ready to go. Using the Plini pocket square, I marked out the center of the apron piece, and then matched that up with a fence on the domino to get it perfectly aligned. And we just drill that in there, and we have a nice hole for a mortise. The domino makes it really easy to do this joinery. It makes it a lot stronger than using something like pocket holes. Now I need to get the mating mortise in the longer part of the apron, so we got that clamped down to the workbench, and then just using the festival domino again to drill out those mortises. Then the floating tenon fits in there, just like this. This is the general idea here, and everything aligns really nicely. So before actually installing everything, I need to drill out the holes where the legs will attach. I want this to be able to be taken apart if I ever need it, and we use the 55227 countersink to do that. So the domino is glued in, or the floating tenon is glued in on both sides, and then everything is assembled and then put into clamps while the glue dries. So everything is perfectly square as shown here. It worked great, and we can get it taken out of clamps once the glue is dry. Using the woodpecker's edge rule, I mark out some areas where I'm going to use the domino to make a mortise to attach some Z-clips, which will hold the tabletop on, allowing it to move independently from the base, so it shouldn't have any problems there. So that is all done, and we can use the Festool MFT to help me assemble this. I'm clamping it down to the tabletop, and then clamping the leg to the apron to allow me to insert the screws from the backside. So I got everything nice and flush, and we inserted the screws, and this piece is nice and secure. So we'll do the same exact thing for all of them, and we have a table base that's ready to go. So this piece is totally not my style. I don't generally do pieces of furniture with any sort of curves or any lines like this, but for a kid's piece, I figured it was a perfect idea, and I really like how it turned out. I also made some tables for the chair and wanted to customize the back with my daughter's name on it. So using some Oramask 813, which we just started selling on our website, I'm going to create a 2-color design on the back of her name. So using the RC-45711 90-degree V-insert bit, you can get her name carved in. This is in Baltic birch, and through the Oramask, it does an absolutely great job cutting this, leaving perfectly clean cuts with literally zero cleanup work needed at all. So that's always really nice to see on stuff like this. So we got that done. We can get it removed from the CNC and go over, and I'm using some General Finishes milk paint here to get that done. It prevents any sort of bleeding since it's thicker, and then using a weeding tool we can pull off that mask. We also started selling these weeding tools on the website as well, and they work great. The weeding tool just helps pull up that edge and get it to where you can actually pull everything off. So with all the mask removed, we have this back of the chair ready to go, so we can get the chair assembled. Assembly is super easy. I did another video on these, you can definitely check that out. But this is essentially how they get assembled. It's just screwed in through the side, and we have a chair that's ready to go. It's always cool to make things a little bit more customized. So, that's ready to go. As always, I added a message on the back for my daughter and future kids on the table, and then we got everything finished. Using the polyacrylic to finish everything makes a nice finish. I brushed it on the top of the table and actually ended up not liking the way that it looks. You can see here that there are some brush strokes visible in the epoxy. I didn't like that, so I sanded it off a little bit and then used a sprayer outside. The first day that I did it, it was rainy, so I just waited and got a much nicer finish. So we can get the base assembled. We got everything on there using the Polini pocket squares. We can get the base squared up to the tabletop. And then using a self-centering bit here on the Z-clips, we can get the tabletop all fastened down. So I did that for all of them, and the table is officially complete. So with that done, we can get it moved up to my daughter's room, and we can see what she thinks of it. I absolutely love the way that this project turned out. It's definitely not generally my style, but I love the funky legs on it. Makes things really nice. I love the crayons on it for her project. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed the build. Listen to her reaction. I absolutely love it. Have a great day, everybody.